Welcome back to the Swimmingly Show. I am Hayes Johnson.
Yeah, I'm Charlie Houchin. How's it going? Today we're talking about the absolute circus that is a summer swim meet.
Yeah, so obviously we live and breathe summer swimming. This is where we started Swimmingly. It excites us, but there's also some massive pain points in summer swimming, and they've all kind of gone unquestioned. I mean, they've been around for about 40 years, and we like to think that we've addressed them.
There you go. All right, let's break down the 5 biggest problems in summer swim meets. Hayes, lay the problems out, and we can discuss exactly why Swimmingly solves it and talk about the way that we built it.
Right on. Well, let's get into it. Let's start with number 1, Charlie. This one hits hard. I think this one, most people feel it's probably what we hear most. People are sick of the paper being literally everywhere on the pool deck. Heat sheets, you've got timer cards, you've got DQ slips, you've even got the results that people are still taping up on the fences. You know, I'm sure you're used to those.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the end, half of that paper is probably wet or thrown away because they don't know what to do with it.
That's right. Yeah. It's like this message will self-destruct at the end of the swim meet. And like all the paper just goes everywhere. Like it doesn't go anywhere. It just goes, it doesn't go anywhere. It goes everywhere.
Yeah. The worst part is everything runs slower because of the paper. You know, you're literally playing. I mean, Charlie, you talk about this a lot, but it's that game of telephone that you have to play. And, you know, on top of that, you have timers forgetting to start their stopwatches. Their handwriting is completely illegible. The timer cards that these volunteers spend hours creating before the meet end up blowing away off the table that the scorekeepers set up, and results are bouncing from one volunteer. You've got the runners taking them from the timers to the scorekeeper. Crazy game of telephone. So tell us how we're solving it, Charlie. Let's get into it.
Well, you're exactly right. That's why we are paperless. I remember our very first summer season on the market. I wish we had a video of this, but my mom was at a swim meet and that was not using Swimmingly, and it was across state lines, and she was observing the runner. The runner's trying to walk around the baby pool. You know how these summer pools have the shallow end that juts off to the side, and trying to kind of cut around the corner. Trips, falls, and the stack of paper blows into the shallow end. And all of these time slips, these records are just sitting there floating on the top of the pool. And that is the perfect example of what it's like to run these meets without Swimmingly. You know, with what we built now, there's no time cards. There's no paper of any kind if you don't want there to be. There's no heat sheets. There's no runners. Everything's electronic. There's no handwriting. There's no retyping. There's no hardware. Timers get synchronized, and they get a synchronized start on their phone. They don't have to start anything. They just see each race start. They tap to stop, and the time from their device, from their Android, from their iPhone, instantly goes to the scorekeeper, what we call the scorekeeper, for review and immediate publishing for live results in Swimmingly Fan. It's fast, it's clean, it's accurate, and anybody can do it. We built it this way because summer meets were never designed to handle all the paper. And honestly, volunteers shouldn't have to.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. When you were writing this business plan in college, and that story is for another time, which is awesome and worth sharing. Was it always to go 100% paperless? Was that always like super important to you? Or were you thinking of digitizing certain points of the swim meet first?
Yeah, I think the first point of focus has always been to eliminate all of the folks that are required to run the meet: staff members, volunteers, parents, etc. The idea is really simple. If a family can choose between soccer and swimming, if you go to a soccer game that's 40 minutes long and you see one referee, and it takes one referee to run the meet, Hayes, as you know, and then you look at a swim meet in the olden days, at least, and it's hours, and it takes dozens and dozens and dozens of volunteers to run. And that was one of the core catalysts for Swimmingly is we have to at least first pay down this technical debt, if you will, and at least get it up to par with the other youth sports and activity options that are out there. And the litmus test is just about any other sport, soccer being a good example. It takes 40 minutes and it takes one referee. And we have to get it to that level where it takes one person to run the meet. So we've been doing that by eliminating the timers, the runners, etc. as we've gone. Great question.
Yeah, well, that's a perfect segue into problem number two. And the problem number two is that there are way too many volunteers, way too many. We call it the volunteer crisis on summer swimming. And Charlie, you just mentioned it perfectly. You talked about the soccer example. It takes one referee to run a soccer game, and then you have summer swim meets, and it literally takes a small army to run these things. You have timers, two timers times 6 to 8 lanes. You've got runners. There's multiple runners taking these timer cards. You've got scores. Usually that's 2 or 3 people sitting at a table under a tent. Ribbon
Right.
riders that are next to those people, heat marshals, bullpen folks, starters, refs, judges. It is an army. And the second that one volunteer leaves, they got to go to the bathroom or they got to leave because they got to pick up their kid. It's absolute panic mode. So you start pulling random dads in. Hey, have you ever timed a meet before? No. Okay, well, we'll teach you. Hey, Charlie, have you ever been a stroke and turn judge? Charlie, did you take the stroke and turn judge course?
Yeah.
No. Okay, let's throw you in. So parents get burnt out. Takes too many volunteers to run these things. So let's talk about that. Let's dive into that.
Yeah. Now, so one thing that we've heard, if we had a dime for every time we've heard the following, a key administrator that's run their team for years, that understands all these old school processes, that understands how to manage the meet. Hayes, that administrator that's been at that team for 10 years, what is the phrase that they always use? Tell me what that phrase is. We've heard it 1,000 times.
I mean, there's too many that go through my head.
We've run tight ship. All right, so let's do it again. So, and here's so and here's the thing, just because you have a process that requires an army of volunteers doesn't make the process good. For example, and the reason for that is you're only as good as the tools that you use. So take, for example, a team administrator that's been running their team, running their meets for 10 years, 5, 10 years. We get this feed. If we had a nickel for every time we've heard someone like that share the following feedback, it's, hey, what is that volunteer, what is that administrator, that team member that knows how to run the meet, knows how to delegate the responsibilities, know exactly who needs to be where, and knows the 700 moving parts. What's the feedback that person gives us typically?
Yeah, you know what, Charlie? Over here at this league, we run a tight ship.
There it is. There it is. We run, you know what? We run a pretty tight ship. We run a pretty tight ship. And the response to that is, we know, but the fact that one person knows exactly how the 617 processes should go and where the 42 people should be at any given time on the deck is problematic in and of itself. So it's not about having refined the knowledge for an archaic system. It's about eliminating all those processes and people altogether. That's what we've been doing with Swimmingly. Swimmingly drops the number of people required to run the meet to the bare minimum. That's first and foremost. So a lot of times we've always said, we don't try to make your meet easier to manage. We just make the meet itself easier categorically. So we're not trying to give you better volunteer management. That's the secondary. The primary is we're trying to eliminate, and we are, the number of volunteers you need in the first place. That's what makes Swimmingly different. So there's no runners, there's no data entry scores, there's no card sorters. You really just need timers and a scorekeeper, one timer. We built it this way because summer meets should be easy to run. We see a lot of teams now, the older swimmers are actually serving as the timers quite often. So in those cases, we're actually seeing this level of ownership for the program where the parents or the staff members aren't having to time anymore at all. This is amazing. And it's easy to run. So when that volunteer pressure drops, the parents actually want to start helping again. And the tie that binds there is simply that it's a one-stop shop, that it does everything from the start of the meet to the end of the meet. It does more than that, but focusing on the meet itself, there's no cobbling together of systems and components and hardware and knowledge and experience. And the idea is very simply that whether you are 10-year veteran that's run the old system or the very first meet you've been to, newbie greenhorn, either person can successfully and equally run a swim meet.
Yeah, so I mean, you nailed it. And I think when you drew the example of the soccer or even football or basketball, you've got these one or two referees. Why is it so important that we focus on getting rid of these volunteers on the
Yeah, it's not that we want to, it's not that they're not important, and it's not that they don't have a role or a place in the ecosystem, but these parents that are free labor for the swim team, right, that are running, that are helping to pitch in, a lot of them enjoy it, don't get me wrong, but they're better served for themselves, for their swimmers, for their kids, for their community, if they can take that focus and that energy and they can put it around the experience of the meet instead of being obsessed or having to be obsessed with whether or not the time slip from lane one has come into the scorekeeper. So having to be operationally level focused as a volunteer or a staff member removes you from being able to focus on the people. If you're focused on the process, you can't be focused on the people. And so you've removed yourself from the equation of entertainment, hospitality, announcing, and helping these people have a good time, bringing these communities together, because all you're worried about is whether or not the person transcribed the time correctly, or, the plunger or the key fob piece of hardware that's broken over there in lane 8 has gotten replaced and you're trying to find a new one in the shed, right? This is all very, very archaic way of doing things.
Yeah, and what would you say about, more volunteers making swim meets longer? Do you think there's correlation there?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I went to a meet in, I've told this story 100 times, but I went to a championship summer swim meet, league about 10 out in California, one of the first summers that swimming league existed. And the president of the league, who was also, one of the coaches for a team, was helping at the scorekeeper. He was running the iPad. And I said, hey, I noticed that behind the blocks, if I'm counting correctly, I see one timer per lane. What's going on with that, Dan? And he looked at me and he said, a funny thing, Charlie, when you have less volunteers behind the blocks, there's less chaos. So, well, that makes sense. He said, when you have fewer timers per lane, there's more ownership for the one timer that's actually timing the lane. So, well, that kind of makes sense. Yeah, I'm with you so far. He said, and then when there's one timer per lane, as the leadership for the meet, me and the other folks over here, we can easily go over and we can show that one person in a stress-free environment how to correctly perform the very simple operations that they need to do. And by the way, when you have an 8-year-old, when you have a 6-year-old behind the blocks, you have a bunch of them lined up for the next 6 races. Instead of having 3 looming parents, strangers that these people don't know, crowding right around the place you're supposed to step up on the block, they're crowding around the very place that you're trying to get to. How many times have you seen a swimmer intimidated, not getting on the block because these big, giant strangers, these timers that they don't know, are standing in front of them trying to capture the time from the current race? It's intimidating. Well, all of a sudden, all of that goes away. You have a low stress environment behind the blocks and you have the kids step up and you can proceed. It's stress free, it's more accurate, and it's a lot simpler. So, to answer your question, yeah, the reduction of volunteers or staff, the reduction of operational people at a swim meet always makes it faster. It always makes it simpler, and almost always makes it more accurate. And that sounds ironic to some people that have done the old school method, but it's true, because the fewer the people, the more ownership they take. The fewer the people, the easier it is to train on the fly. And the fewer the people, the less stress in the environment that there is. And it's easier for them to do the simple operations and not worry about making mistakes.
Yeah, awesome points. And I think obviously the timers take up the lion's share of volunteer space on the pool deck.
Mhm.
And provide some perspective here on teams coming to swimmingly. We have new leagues come on every single year. How
Yeah.
often would you say that these leagues come in and they're like, hey, well, we're running 3 timers per lane, which is crazy, by the way.
Uh-huh.
And we have some leagues that are running 2 timers per lane. How often would you say it is that they actually realize that reducing one of those volunteers is not really a problem when they thought it was at first?
Yeah, it's a common, you're talking about one of our common kind of FAQs for a new team when they onboard is, well, our league has always said in the bylaws, we have to have X number of timers per lane, 3 timers per lane, 2 timers per lane. And that's just the way that it's got to be. When, we help guide them through and explain, well, that's because You've done the best with the tools available over the years. And so the bylaws that were written 25 years ago, you can revise them. It's time to revise them. And usually they do. Almost always they do, in fact. And they're just used to the process from the old school days. They're used to it. They almost need it to be, expect it to be chaotic. How can you run a meet without having 3 timers behind each of the 8 lanes, each of the 6 lanes? Like, more timers must equal better and more accurate. No, as we previously talked about, oftentimes the correlation is just the opposite, because you have these timers that aren't necessarily trained, or they're doing it for the first time and they're willing to pitch in. But then all of a sudden they're going, well, I don't really know what my role is, because there's 2 other timers here, and the ownership level just decreases, and they don't take responsibility in the way that they do if it's simple and there's just one of them behind each lanes. Yeah, walking through when we onboard new leagues that are used to there being, say, 3 timers and they move to 2 timers, it's one of the biggest talking points that we have, points of education that we have with them. And there's lots of ways that we help them navigate it. But at the end of the day, it's about, we've done this for 25 years and it's the only way we understand, and just helping walk through why you can cast off a lot of that burden that has frankly plagued the side of the pool deck for all of these years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said it best, more volunteers equals more chaos, and that will probably make swim meets take longer.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get into problem number 3, and that is one that every parent feels without a doubt. And
Yep.
this is that summer swim meets are long, they drag on, they take too long. You've got, on the short side, you've probably got 3-hour meets. On the long side, you've got, I don't know, 5-hour meets, sometimes more.
For sure.
But then you only have your kids swimming for a total of 3 minutes. And then, crazy enough, behind the scenes, most of that time is just, like we've said this whole time talking today, it's all chaos.
Yeah.
And it's fixing mistakes. That's its own chaos behind the scene. Timing issues, that's another huge issue that takes a lot of time to fix.
Yep.
And then, of course, you have re-entering results for whatever reason. I mean, it just
Yep.
drags on every step of the way.
Yeah.
So let's dive into that one.
Without a doubt, this is one of the biggest reasons that we built Swimmingly. Probably a personal favorite of mine is simply that meets go faster. You can run a meet faster. When times go instantly from the timers to the scoring, for example, for review, so to speak, all those delays disappear. And when you do that process, times going from the end of the pool to the scorekeeper's table, when you do that instantly and you do that without any hardware, when you do that without trying to put some RF transmitter that's on the side of the pool deck that was shipped to your team, 10 days ago, and cobble it together with some piece of software over here, and they've never talked, like, that's the problem that we're solving. It's not just that the times go instantly from the timers to the scoring. It's how they do that. And it's without hardware overhead configuration of any kind, because the days of being impressed with your technical knowledge of running a swim meet, those days are over. We want the new parent to be able to run a meet as effectively as the veteran parent. We want the new staff member to be able to run a meet as effectively as a veteran staff member. And that's what we see on our platform every single week. So there's no retyping mistakes, because you're not typing anything. You're not inputting anything. There's no searching for cards, DQ slips. There's no repeating heats. The meet it just flows. It's designed to be an experience on an app, because it is an experience on an app. We consistently see teams cut their meet runtime, the duration, by at least 25%. So for a small meet, we're talking about approaching 60 minutes. And for a larger meet or an average meet, we are definitely talking about saving duration runtime of the meet itself over 60 minutes. So think about that. When you have a 4-hour meet on a Saturday morning, what that time means to your people. Again, you've been so focused on the process, you can't focus on your people and providing a great experience, because you just want to make sure that the times and the slips from lane 1 get to the other end of the pool, and you're vaguely aware that you've run over time, that you're at the 4-hour mark, the 5-hour mark, and we take care of that with the app. And so now you can focus on those people, and getting out of there 25% faster is a meaningful thing to these families that have other activities. They have their lives to live. And it makes them more likely to come back next season, which is the goal in the first place. So, Swimmingly exists to take the focus off operating the swim meet. Let me say that again. We built a system to operate swim meets so that the focus is no longer on operating the swim meet. It's not about the app. The app just does what it's supposed to behind the scenes. For too long, leadership at swim meets, because of the hand they've been dealt, the tools available at the time, whether intentionally or unintentionally, have made the swim meet focus about operating the meet itself. It kind of turns in on itself. Part of being involved in leading a swim meet, so it seems, was, obsessing over how the operations were running at any given time. Did lane one slip get over here? Is everything synchronized over here with this piece of hardware that's supposed to get over here to this totally separate piece of hardware? And so if you were a fly on the wall looking at the leadership at a swim meet, the only thing that they're talking about, focused on discussing, is the operations itself. They're hardly aware of the swimmers in the water. They're hardly aware that they're actually at a swim meet with people trying to build a community. They're just trying to get the results from lane four, at the other end of the pool, back to the scorer's table. So any new staff or volunteer parent who wanted to help pitch in was sucked in by this tractor beam that had been created. The more involved you became in the old way of running meets, the more your focus was over the little details and operational needs instead of the experience of the athletes, the coaches, the teams, the hospitality, and the entertainment.
Yeah, I mean, you obviously nailed everything there, but talk to us about what the actual big differences are on the pool deck. Like where are they really saving this time? Because this is really some of the big questions we get when we talk to new teams. Like,
Yeah.
well, Charlie or Hayes, tell me exactly where we're saving time, because like we said earlier, we run a tight ship here, and I can't foresee that we can really cut down
Yeah,
an
for sure.
hour. So talk to us about that.
Yeah, help me break it down here, because you have this, let's say, this veteran league person that says, guys, I've been doing this for 12 years. Like, I'm running it as well as I possibly can. And they're using this old framework of high tech here, time slips here, maybe plungers or some, erroneous hardware over here. And they're going, I'm doing the best. I think I'm doing pretty well here. What am I missing? Well, it's a whole new framework. It's a whole new paradigm. And so the way that they're saving time is in 4 ways. There's 4 ways that they're saving time in the swim meet operations itself. Number 1 is in meet setup. So meet setup really can extend as far as entries and stuff. I'm not even talking about that, though we help with that stuff. So the day of the swim meet, the operations setup takes that long. Operations of the old school was, well, you better make sure you're here at least 90 minutes before warm-ups even start, because there's so much to do. You've got to get this stuff set up as the leader of the swim meet before anybody gets on the pool deck, because you're going to get bombarded with questions. There's going to be chaos. And so you got to spend, operation setup is at least 90-minute arrival before warm-ups to get everything set up here, to get the time slips here. If you're using some sort of hardware, get it set up over here. Any electronics, any software, you've tested it over here. Swimmingly, you open up the app, it tells you what to do, you huddle the devices, and you're ready to go. There's no configuration, there's no hardware, there's no setup. It's like
And that takes about 10 to 15 minutes.
10 to 15 minutes. If you're a newbie, we recommend, a little bit more lead time, 10 more minutes. It's like using an app on your phone, because it is using an app on your phone. Requiring people to somehow have this proprietary knowledge of these weird pieces of technology, these weird pieces of hardware, and somehow fit all of that together and do that the day of the meet, and then do that the day of the meet when the one person that's done it for 5 years is out of town, is ridiculous. That's number 1. Number 2 is the actual runtime of the swim meet. Now, we talked about this a moment ago. It just flows. It just flows. The secret sauce of Swimmingly during the swim meet is what we call the quick start feature. What that means is we've eliminated 100% of the dead time between races. So the technology, the app, is ready to start heat 2 as soon as the hand of the last swimmer in heat 1 has touched the wall. And so whether you're eliminating 20 seconds of dead time between races, race finishes, All right, swimmers, to the top of the blocks, are you using the whistle system like USA Swimming uses? Different discussion there. A lot of 6-year-olds don't know what that means. Or there's 60 seconds of dead time, which is pretty common, again, in these average summer swim meets. 60 seconds. We don't even use that as our metric. We use like 20, 30 seconds as our metric. 60 seconds times 100 heats is an insane amount of time for parents and everyone at the pool to be looking and staring at a pool and there's nothing going on. There's literally nobody in the water. It's just ripples on the surface of the water. 60 seconds times 100 heats in between each race. So that's number 2, is the dead time saved.
Yeah, and the big piece there is that the timers, no matter what, are gonna get the start. So they never
Mhm.
have to worry about stopping, writing down, giving it to someone, and then being ready to start the clock. That is where you can eliminate all of that dead time, which Charlie has just so eloquently said will add a lot more time than you actually think.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, the again, it goes back to, it's not just that we eliminate the dead time between each race so the meet can run faster. It's how we do that. The way that we do that is, it's not that there aren't revisions or corrections using the Swimmingly app sometimes. It's that that stuff can be done in the dev world. They would say asynchronously. In, normal people would say it can be done separate, can be done independently. So the meet is going on, and then the operational folks can focus on that separately. They don't have to stop the meet. They don't have to delay anything for anything that goes on, from combining heats or events leading up to a race, or for changes that need to be made retroactively. Any of that stuff, no one knows in the experience over here of the swim meet that stuff is going on. All of that stuff is being done, and it's being done very easy and seamlessly over here, but it's not at the sacrifice of the swim meet experience itself. That's exactly right. So that's number 2, is the runtime. Number 3 is the post-op time. And this is where a lot of teams still struggle in the old school days because, well, we got to send the results out, right? And you start with that old school, well, we got to get the file to all of the teams. I mean, it's 2025. If you're saying we got to get the file to the teams, the results file, the entries file, the meet, like, we got to get the file to the teams, that's a good indication that you're wasting hundreds of people's times after a swim meet. All right. So with Swimmingly, it's as simple as, when you publish the results from the iPad on the pool deck, when the meet is finalized at the end of the meet, and by end of the meet, I mean, 60 seconds after the last race,
Sure. Yeah.
you hit the button. Everyone that was associated with that particular meet just got an email. They just got a push notification. It says, here's a quick sneak peek of the results for your swimmers. Click here, and they're in and they're looking at the results. The concept of having to send a file, again, we do the process with the app. You focus on your people. Publish, everyone gets the experience. Now, in the olden days, we're waiting 48 hours, maybe, for that file to get sent out. And by the way, the average parent has totally lost interest at that point. If they can see the results in real time and they can get a summary of it immediately as they walk off the pool deck, that's a good experience. That's a great experience. Any parent that's waiting 48 hours to still get the results, not only is that an F experience, that's a grade F experience, but they're not going to be interested in coming back to the sport. That amount of delay is so beyond unacceptable. We wonder why people don't understand our sport. That's a big reason. So that post-op is a big thing. And then number 4 is kind of the fun one. This is for the teams that really have transcended to the level of Swimmingly power user, because they stop asking questions like, how many timers do they need? And they start asking questions like, how can we categorically make this a better experience? So for example, we've made a meet with 60 events run faster. They've experienced it. Their old school event order has 60 events. They're like, dang, this is a lot easier. This is putting smiles on people's faces, and people are getting out of here a lot earlier. Dad's met his tea time, and mom's, over here, the kids are doing the pizza party or whatever, and everyone's happy. This is a good experience. And then number 4, they're starting to ask questions like, well, what if we divvied up the event order instead of 60 events? Swimmingly can only make it run so fast if we're going to run 60 events times, 2.5 heats on average per event. It's still a lot, right? So what would be true our parents love being on the pool deck. It's not like they don't like being at our club. They love being at our club. They're going to go have lunch inside afterwards, or they're going to have a pizza party on the pool deck afterwards. But if we can do 2 meets times 30 events, they want to be at our pool. It's not being at the pool, it's the drudgery of not knowing when this thing is going to end. And all of a sudden, we have leagues that are running that have broken their meet into 2 parts in various ways. And they're running one session, one meet on Friday and one on Saturday morning, for example. These are great ways. This is number 4. Those are teams and leagues that have really leveled up, and they're not just getting the benefits of using the app, they're optimizing their usage of our platform. And those are some of our power users. It's really great to see.
Yeah. And they are focusing on making the experience better for the parents, like you mentioned. And that is crucial because the parents at the summer swimming level and the grassroots level are oftentimes the ones pushing or keeping their kids in the sport. If they are going to be these drag on meets, they're going to be like, well, hey, Charlie, why don't we go do soccer instead? I mean, it takes an hour out of our time on a Saturday. It
Yep.
seems like you're not super interested in swimming. Let's just change another sport. So moving into problem number 4, the parents truly have new parents.
Mhm.
Speak to the new parents. They truly have no clue what is happening at a swim meet. Okay. The summer meets communication is pretty terrible, I would say. And there's very little transparency from start to finish. You know, when they sign up to register their kid for the season to their last meet of the season, the transparency that these parents have is not great. So they don't know when their kid's swimming most of the time. They don't know what lane they're in. They don't know how they did, what the score is, and when they can leave. So you're basically relying on these parents storming the scorekeeper or the coaches, shouting or saying, hey, what did my kid go? Why did my kid get DQ'd? What's this heat sheet? What am I supposed to be looking for? And so without a system that includes the parents and keeps them educated along the way, parents are going to miss races constantly and they're going to leave the sport.
So true. Yeah, I think I want to talk about the kind of our vision and strategy there before we get into the actual Swimmingly Fan app. But what you just said there is so key and crucial that in order for the experience, for the sport, the youth sport of swimming to be successful, we have to design. Now, first of all, to be a sport, it has to have competition. So we're talking about the swim meet, right? Participating in competition. That's why these kids sign up for this. In order for the sport to be successful, the experience has to include the parents from day one, from Jump Street, integrally involved. Now, what you see in the old school swim meet system is a way to keep the parents at bay because of exactly what you just said, Hayes. You know, we're so busy running the meet, we're so focused on getting this right for their sake, and rightly so, that we couldn't possibly be bombarded with more questions or get distracted. We're going to miss a time slip. We're going to miss synchronizing this or paying attention to this. And so in their best good faith effort, they're trying to say, parents, you know, just kind of leave us alone and don't bother us. We're going to get this done. And then if you have questions, like let's talk about it later. That is inherently the problem. That Swimmingly Fan is a part of the experience from the moment the meet starts. The parents can see everything going on. A new club would say, well, I don't know about that. You know, that's not the way that we did things in the past. Yeah, we know. We're bringing them in. When they have questions, it's good because you can seamlessly help them and walk them through what's going on. And so we have our live results app. We call it Swimmingly Fan, and it fixes all of this completely because they're just involved. It's not, do you want to include the parents? Do you want to push live results for this particular meet? It just happens. There's no configuration. There's no yes or no. It just happens. Parents pay. Parents get the experience. Parents pay all the monthly dues. Parents pay for the entries. Parents pay for whatever. And so they're in the experience. They're one of the most important constituents. They get notifications from Swimmingly Fan before each of their kids' races so they don't miss it. Maybe that's the dad feature. We'll call that the dad feature. They see results instantly, whether they're on the pool deck or they're not on the pool deck. They see the score. They can see what's going on. If it's unofficial, you know, don't worry. Scorekeeper, you can mark it as unofficial. They know exactly what's going on without needing to ask anyone. And it's done in a way where the information is not intentionally being kept from the most important constituents, which are the parents and the swimmers that want to see what's going on Swimmingly Fan. So we built this because they shouldn't feel lost, the parents, the swimmers, the coaches included. They need to feel included. They do feel included because the live results and the push notifications on Swimmingly Fan just work. I mentioned there's no hardware, there's no configuration to get this going, there's no setup, there's no insider knowledge. So you can know if Swimmingly is running your meet, you already know that fans and parents are watching the meet on Swimmingly Fan. So let me say that again. If Swimmingly is running your meet, you already know that fans and parents are watching the meet on Swimmingly Fan. Coaches love this feature. They're on the side of the pool, they're cheering, they're watching their kids. Before Johnny gets over to Coach Charlie at the end of the race, Coach Charlie already sees that Johnny went 29.99, broke 30 for the first time in his 50 back, and improved his best time by half a second. There you go. No one pressed a button to get that to the coach. No configuration was done to set that up for the coach. There was no hardware required or some IT guy on the back end with 12 years of experience to get that to the coach. It's like it's just running an app because it is running an app.
Yeah. And I've got two follow-ups. You mentioned this a little bit, and it is something we experience maybe from the old school type leagues.
Mm-hmm.
What do you say to the coaches or the team reps that come to us and say, hey, I don't know if I want to share this stuff with the parents on the pool deck?
Yeah. We say one of the things we do always is encourage them first. And we say, we know what it's like to be in your shoes. We know what it's like to be in your shoes with trying to do task A, focusing on the swimmers, helping them with technique, encouraging them in the water. There's a lot going on there in the actual people side of a swim meet. That's where the coach's focus should be. And we've also been on the business side of this, and we understand that if you're intentionally keeping the information from the people that are paying for their child to be there, then it's backwards. You're shooting yourself in the foot. And so by including this level of transparency for the parents, we're making the coach look like the hero. The parents are going to have questions. It's not a matter of if they're going to have they always have questions, whether they get real-time information or not. And they're not stupid. The parents, if they feel like they're being left in the dark, it's because they're being left in the dark. When you have this level of transparency, the coach looks like the hero. The parents still are going to ask questions before, during, or after the meet. That's fine. And that coach can walk them through it, and they can use the tool that we've given them as a way to facilitate that communication. They're not having to sift through like, well, let's see, where did I write that information? We're on event 36, heat 1 lane. Like, no, it's just on the app. They can pull it up. In fact, they can see, hey, pull up your phone, go back to event 36, and let's talk about it in a few minutes when I have a bit of time.
Yeah. And when it really is such a great experience for these parents, and they really do enjoy it, especially the new parents when they're included in the experience. It's pretty eye-opening. So when the coach becomes a hero and the parents are like, wow, this is pretty amazing. What is it doing to the overall meet experience in your mind?
Yeah, well, it's allowing the coaches to coach. Go back to the coach's role, and we've heard that, many times before. Solving this underlying problem allows the coaches to coach. The tools that they need to look like the heroes that they often are just running everything that's going on. That's a really good feeling if you're a coach, knowing that all of this data is getting collected. Every single parent, the 247 parents that are in the stands right now that are walking around this pool deck, I could not possibly talk to all of them for even 30 seconds today. There's no way. I'm just one person as the coach. Yeah. But I already know that they've gotten a push notification congratulating their swimmer on the time improvement immediately after the race. That reflects well on me because my team chose to use these tools, and we've optimized them in a way that makes me look good and makes these parents really enjoy the experience because they feel included.
Yeah. Awesome. And then this one, it's easy to roll into this problem number 5. And it's that results in the old system, results really do take forever. Yeah. And sometimes results are even wrong. So at summer swim meets, results might not be finalized until hours or even days, like you mentioned earlier, after the meet has concluded, and they
Yep.
can be unclear. They can come in files that people don't understand, or times are missing, or even wrong, whatever it might be.
There's a
Why?
revised file, or we got to send it
Yeah.
back up. Yep.
And why is this? It's because someone has taken a handwritten card
Game of
and that
telephone.
person's trying to decode it, type it into a computer, hope that it's right, and then print it off, post it on the fence, get that file, send it to someone after the meet. It really is. I think this is the slowest part of the meet, and it's
Mhm.
the easiest place to make mistakes. And
Absolutely.
I think when I get on demos and I talk to new leagues, the reduction of manual data entry is my
Mhm.
favorite piece to talk about with these people, especially the ones that you get that are the meet admin or whatever. They can resonate with that and they can say, "You're telling me that I can just sit and watch the meet?"
Yep.
Yeah, you can. So obviously the results is a big part of this. Let's dive into swimmingly. Let's talk about it. This is awesome. I love this part.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, again, it's not just that it can do it, it's how it can do it. And what makes this different is, yeah, a timer stops their watch, which is their phone, by the way. Hello. And that time immediately goes to the scorekeeper's iPad. And that immediately goes to the parents' Swimmingly Fan app, the live results. There's no middle steps, there's no extra people, there's no handwriting, clumsy hardware, manual reentry. It just flows. It's like using an app, Haze, because it is using an app. It's 2025. We built all of this stuff because it's got to be instant, it's got to be accurate, it's got to be worry free every time, and that's exactly what it is. I think what and this has always been your favorite feature, your favorite benefit of the Swimmingly platform is that there's no data entry. You know, who's that poor person that's sitting over there at the high-tech computer doing data? Like, you
Mm.
can't make that system any better except the speed by which their fingertips tap the keyboard, you know? And that only runs as fast as the next pile of cards or information comes in, and they're just doing it. They're like a hamster on a wheel. It's crazy. And that's why ribbons don't get to the other team until 3 days later. That's why the files with the results don't get to the coach until the next day. That's why the person that's doing it at the keyboard with high tech is up until 3 in the morning, because they know that they're the bottleneck. They know it depends on them. And in good spirit and good faith, they want to get it done for the sake of all of these people in their community. It's a noble thing. It's a sacrificial thing, but that's what we've eliminated. And so we have instituted what you and I call the immediate feedback loop. And so the immediate feedback loop is as simple as this. If your swim meet isn't providing all of the results, all of the ribbon labels before the teams leave the pool deck, or even we'll grant you as the teams are leaving the pool deck, then you don't have a swim meet, you have a science experiment. Again, there's swim meets that are run with Swimmingly, and those results, those ribbon labels, everything that everyone needs for the experience, if they're delivered before these folks leave the pool deck, that's a swim meet experience. That's a youth sport activity that parents see the real time value for, swimmers see the real time value for, coaches see the real time value for. That's a swim meet competition. If you have a swim meet where the results don't come in and get sent out to the other teams until the next day, and the ribbon labels aren't available until 48 hours after, that's not a swim meet, that's a science experiment. And that's the difference with lack of data entry, no data entry, and the old school system.
Yeah, and I think results they're obviously so important. These swimmers, it's an individual sport, but it's a team sport. At the summer swimming level, it's fun, but these results need to be shared and broadcasted immediately. You know,
Immediately.
every other sport has a scoreboard. We're
Immediately.
sitting here with still, I mean, you have coaches and team reps that don't want to share those results because some might be unofficial and they
Right.
don't want so and so's mom or dad to be upset. Well, hey, that's part of the education process. There are
100%.
going to be times that are not official, and that's okay. You can educate your parents on that. That's
Right.
part of the learning curve of swim meets. So it's just important. I just wanted to say results should be broadcasted. They need to be shared immediately as soon as their kid touches the wall. Get them the result in their pocket. Let's have fun.
That's it.
So those are the 5 big problems of summer swimming. You've got paper, way too much of it, too many
Mhm.
volunteers, really long meets that drag on. You've got confused parents, a lack of transparency, and slow results getting to these parents. All
Yeah.
right.
And that's exactly why the platform exists. That's why we've delivered swimmingly on pool decks the world over for over the last 10 years now.
Yeah, and we'll continue shouting this from the mountaintops. We truly believe that summer swimming should be fun. It should not take an entire village or army to run these things. It should be simple for everyone involved. Most importantly, the new volunteers, the new parents that join those swim teams.
That's it. That's it. Are the great equalizer with swimmingly. The take home message is that whether you are a 10-year veteran of running swim meets or you've never been to a swim meet before, but you have to help run your first one this week, with swimmingly as your guide, everybody can run it and everyone can do it easily.
Amen to that. Yeah. So if this episode made you nod your head or triggered some trauma from last season's meets, share it with your league or
I got
team.
triggered eyes.
Yeah, we definitely want to talk to you guys.
Awesome. Yeah. If you're listening, thinking our team, yeah, this might be speaking our language, then reach out to it that it's up. You know where to find us. And until then, let's keep it going swimmingly.